Okay, boys and girls, we are going to be looking at the different text features in our story. So you just read the story, you just read Dear Primo, and let's remind ourselves about different text features. So different text features can be punctuation, they can be things such as dashes, and different types of exclamation marks, and colons, and different types of punctuation. They can also be different kinds of type, so the way the text looks. So it could be boldface, capital letters, italics, there could be large letters, there could be small letters, the letters can be in color. And those things can tell us that there's a title, they can tell us that there's something important in the text that they want us to notice. Usually that's why they do that. In Dear Primo, they have different things, and we're going to be discussing those different things that we're seeing with the text. We have different graphic features that are illustrations. So there can be diagrams, maps, speech bubbles, and we had those the other week where we had some speech bubbles. So there were different types of graphic features. So today, we're going to be reading different pages in our story, and we're going to be looking for different text features. Yes? So, let's start. So we want to be on page 126. That's the page we're going to be really looking at for some text features. So we are on our page that we have here, and this is going to help us focus on some important text features in our story. So let's look at that. So let's look. Here we are on page 126. Let's look at that.
After I finish my homework, my mom lets me go outside and play. In Mexico, we have many games like trompos and canicas. Trompo, canicas. My favorite game is papalotes. My friends and I run, and with a little wind, we fly the papalote high up.
Okay.
Papalote.
So on page 33 it says, some stories include text features such as bold text and italic text. Punctuation such as ellipses and dashes can be text features too. Many stories include graphic features such as illustrations and labels. Answer the questions about 126 and 127 of Dear Primo. So they want to know, how does the author make Spanish words stand out? So let's look. Here are some of our Spanish words. How are we having Spanish words? Here are the Spanish words. Trompos and canicas. Papalote. How are those words standing out? Avery, how do those words stand out?
Because
What do we call that? Look at it.
they're slanted.
And what do we call that? Do you remember what we call that? Who remembers what that's called? You're right, it's slanted, but there's a special word for that, for types of words that are printed like that or written like that, and they're slanted. There's a special term for that. Who remembers what that's called? Oh, Ivy, what is that called?
It's called italics.
Italics. It's italic print. So let's write that. We're going to have to write that. Let me go here. So let's say, so the Spanish, we're going to write it in a sentence. So we'll say the Spanish words, I'm going to write it white. So the Spanish words are in italics. so that's pretty good that you can see that because it's a little, I think it's a little hard to tell on that page. Okay. Now we do have a follow-up question about the Spanish words on that page. Did everybody write that? I'm going to give everybody time to finish. We're still looking at that page. Okay. Okay, so now let's look here. It wants to know, our follow-up question number 2 is, where else do the Spanish words appear? Where else are we seeing Spanish words? I'm going to move my page a little. Where else do you see Spanish words? Kelsey?
They appear in the illustrations by what they are.
Yes, they're appearing here. We see canicas, trompo, papalote. And what do you think these are called? What do we call that?
They're
Yes, those are the kinds of, but what do we call when they're next to something? What do you think that's called? When they're next to something. What do we call that? Olive?
a label.
A label. Very good. Yes, they're a label. So what we can say here, let me go back here. So we're seeing a label. So it's labeled. So this is a trompo. And what is that in English? What do you think that is? What would that be? Teddy? Is it a yo-yo? I don't think that's a yo-yo. It's a top. So trompo must mean top. And then a papalote is a kite. And then we've got the canicas, and they're playing what? What are canicas? Libby? It looks like a marble game, right? Marbles? So that's what they're playing. And so they have them labeled. That's a label. And it's in white so we can see it. So it's labeled, right, Mikey? All labeled. So they're using them in labels. So what we can say is, as labels, they're labeled in the illustration. They are what could we say? They, where else do the Spanish, what is the question? Where else do the Spanish words appear? Oh, you know what, I don't like this. I'm erasing this, sorry. Erasing, because we want to use the word labels. So as labels in the illustrations. I'm not using a sentence. As labels in the illustrations. We like them to be, usually we like to use sentences, but I want to make sure I have the word labels there. As labels in the illustration. So we have some labels. So when we're looking at different types of text, sometimes we have labels so we know what we're looking at. We wouldn't know what those were in Spanish if they didn't label them. Okay, now we have a very important question to answer. How do the illustrations and labels help readers understand the meanings of the Spanish words? Because I don't speak Spanish, but I knew what all those things were in the illustrations. How did they help us? Elisa, how did they help us? So how did these labels on the trompo and the canicas and the papalote help us? How did they help us know the meanings of the Spanish words? Well, the labels are there, but how did the illustrations and labels help us? How did they help me understand the meaning of these Spanish words? Because I don't know what a papalote is, but now I do because I see papalote and I see it's next to a kite. I don't know what a trompo is, but I see it's next to a top, so now I know a trompo is a top. They use the pictures. Libby, what else do you have to add to that? Yes?
They help us know what it is and visualize it.
Yes, they help us know and they help us visualize it. So the illustrations, the labels tell us what the Spanish words are, right? So the labels tell what the Spanish words are. Because they use the Spanish word in the text, right? So what the Spanish words are and the illustrations show what they mean. Because they talk about those words in the text. So if they just said those words in the text, I wouldn't know what they were. I would have no clue in the text. But once they had the label next to the things they like to do, then I was able to make that connection. So I was able to know what exactly they were talking about. It helped clear it all up for me. Then I knew. I knew then. Because it was in, it became clear. Because it said in Mexico, we have many games like trompos and canicas. I'd be like, I don't know what trompos or canicas is. Olive, do you know what trompos and canicas is? If you were just reading it without the illustrations and the labels, you'd be like, wow, that could be fun, but I don't know what trompos and canicas is. And be like, well, I have no clue. But then we saw the illustration and the label, and then we knew exactly what those were. And then if somebody said to you, hey, Mikey, you want to go play with your papalote? You want to go, let's go play with our papalotes? You would be like, I don't know, right? But when you see the picture, and it's got the label next to it, then you know a papalote is a kite. So you're able to know that because they have provided that information to us with an illustration and a label. That's pretty handy dandy. Info we need. So now let's go. We need to look on page 127. We're going to look at the next 2 pages.
When I finish my homework, I play games with my friends from the building. We play by the stoop and in each other's apartments too. I like going over to my friend's home to play video games. Video. The word video describes a recording of movements and actions that you can see on a television or computer screen.
Okay, now, how do the illustrations help you know where the boys live? How do the illustrations help you know where the boys live? How do they help us know where the boys live? Teddy?
They show the biome or the area
They show the what?
The biome or the area.
Okay. What else? Ivy?
They're showing different people.
They're showing different people. Okay, Logan?
Because in the city there's tall buildings.
The illustrations show tall buildings. Yes.
And you can know because in Mexico there's a lot of cactuses.
There's a lot of cactus.
There's not a lot of cactuses in America.
Yes, there aren't in some areas, but not where Charlie lives. Yes.
Because each boy in the illustrations, like, is where they live.
Yes, and they show, I think I like how on page 126 and 127, we're seeing the cactus, we're seeing the cacti, so we can see that there's the different cactus. So let's say that, so we can see, what question number is that? Question 4. We can see cactus, or cacti, I guess, cacti, to show where, who lives in Mexico? Where Carlito lives. Lives in Mexico. In Mexico. And what shows us that Charlie lives in the city on page 128 and 129, particularly on 128. Teddy? Yes, and tall buildings, and the tall buildings. And the tall buildings show that Charlie lives in the city. In the USA.
Maybe he lives in Chicago or Boston.
Maybe New York. I don't know, that bridge made me think it was New York. Where? Oh, I don't know. I'm thinking it seems very New York to me. The things he does seem very New York to me. Yeah. The way he is on the bridge that they showed seemed very New York to me, and the way they're out on the stoops and playing baseball, just the things that he's doing seem very New York to me. Okay? Yes. Yeah, and they're break dancing in the street. That just seems all so New York to me. It seems less Chicago to me. It just seems more New York. It does not seem California to me at all. So there. So we're using the illustrations to help us do a lot of different things in this story. Okay? And we have a lot of tall buildings. Very good, boys and girls. So we did a lot of looking at different things in the book, different text features.